Kurt Vonnegut says that there is a money river that flows through America, and there are people who know where it is, and anytime they need to, they go to the river and they dip out a bucket of money and take it with them. But the problem is, most people don't know where it is. I don't know where it is. Karen? No? You haven't found it yet? I know some people who seem to have found it. They seem to be able to always put their hands on what they need. I haven't found that yet. Money's not really my thing. Money and finances, that's not my specialty by any means. I've always said you can divide the world into number people and word people, and I'm definitely one of the word people, not one of the number people. So I don't always understand all about finance and what needs to be done, and even when it comes to churches and how to finance churches, I understand the concept of stewardship, which is that what we have is what we have been given, and what we have been given is not ours, it is ours to take care of and to do right with. So when I get confused about this thing, I'd like to find places in the Bible where things are explained a little bit better, and one of the places to go is this 12th chapter of Luke that we just read. Now, I want to just go through it a little bit and talk to you about it and see, maybe we can figure some things out. Talking about it and thinking about it, maybe you can help as well. The first thing that Jesus talks about is this, the mismatch that happens between hearts and lives. My son, when he was little, had two pairs of canvas shoes, one red and one black, and he liked to wear one of each often. And if anybody mentioned it to him, he would always say, yeah, I've got another pair just like it at home. But one of the things that Jesus says is there's a mismatch. He talks about the yeast of the Pharisees, and what he's talking about here is the opposite of what a lot of people claim today. We have a lot of people who say they are spiritual but not religious. Jesus' problem with the Pharisees was that they seemed to be religious but not spiritual, that they had all kinds of religious practices, but it didn't seem to translate into love for others in their lives. And he said, what he was saying was there's this mismatch in their lives. There's what they say they believe and what they live, and when your life is mismatched, it makes you anxious and uncomfortable and unhappy with where you are. You want to have your life coordinated with itself. But when it's mismatched like this, he says that's a problem. And Jesus says you don't want to be like those people. You don't want to be claiming one thing and living another. When our hearts and our lives are mismatched, we become distressed. So then, while Jesus is talking about this, someone from the crowd shouts out to him, "Tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me." And Jesus' answer to him is, "Excuse me, but who appointed me to be the judge between you and your brother?" Now, what is happening between this man and his brother? Don't know the details, but I can tell you this. It's not a financial issue. It's a spiritual issue. Have you ever heard of a situation in which people got arguing about inheritance so much that it destroyed the relationship between them? It happens. It happens often. And really the problem comes down to it's not so much finances, it is a spiritual issue, because the people would allow the wealth, the money, to get in between the relationship between brother and sister, between parent and child. It happens so often. It's a hard thing to see. Wealth doesn't make people happy after a certain point. This is a study that they've done recently, is they found that when people get enough money to feel relatively secure, that's as happy as they're going to get with money. You can add more to it after that, it doesn't help. Once a group of millionaires were asked how much money they needed to live their lives and be secure, and they concluded they needed about $10 million a year. I've found I can live on less than that. How about you? But the issue is that what we have found is once your life is secure, once your basic needs are met, Adding more money doesn't make people happier. Sometimes it actually works in the opposite direction. But our society values people with more wealth. Sometimes we look down on other people who don't have as much. A lot of us aspire to be wealthy, and when we do, it becomes very difficult to maintain the right attitude towards the people in our lives as well. So Jesus talks about three things after this. He talks about vestment, he talks about divestment, and he talks about investment. Vested. Let's talk about being vested. Nobody's wearing a vest. Not one of us. Wait a minute. Oh, Don. Okay. All right. Good. Jesus says this. He says, vestment, your clothing. He says, we're like flowers. Notice how the lilies grow, Jesus says. They don't wear themselves out with work, and they don't spin cloth. But I say to you that even Solomon in all his splendor wasn't dressed like one of these. If God dresses the grass of the field so beautifully, even though today it's alive and tomorrow it's thrown into the fire, how much more will God do for you, you people of little faith? So, who is the most beautiful person here today? Anyone want to claim that? Anyone want to nominate somebody? Jessie? Where is she? Oh, she's already gone out. Sarah's getting a nomination. Okay, so let's just assume it is Sarah. Okay, she's the most beautiful person here. What is it that makes someone beautiful? We have a lot of ideas about what beauty is, but it's a God-given thing. It is not something we earn with wealth. Now, society tells us that beauty is hard to come by. It takes a lot of work. You have to spend a lot of time and money if you want to be beautiful in our society. It requires a lot of stuff. So sometimes we worry about how we're going to get everything we need just to be beautiful. But Jesus tells us that God has made us beautiful already. Yes, Sarah is beautiful, and so is Matthew sitting right next to them, because God has made us beautiful already with no effort on our part. What is it? You tell me. What is it that makes a person beautiful? Their characteristics. Modesty, for one thing. Okay. Yeah. Joy makes people beautiful. It does. It does. What makes people beautiful?
Confidence.
Now, whatever is inside shining out through. I'm coming back to you, Mel, because that's one. I heard another back here. Confidence, yes. There's all kinds of things that make a person beautiful. And Mel says something right. What we believe is that the image of God within each of us, when we allow that to shine out, we become beautiful people. Love, forgiveness, peace, compassion, when these are coming out of our lives, then we are beautiful people. And everybody thinks so. You know, when you think about those people who are loving and compassionate and peaceful, we think of them as being beautiful. So, the first thing that Jesus says is, you're already vested, you're already dressed, you're beautiful to begin with. Then he says we ought to divest, and says a couple of things here. First of all, Jesus asks this question, who of you by worrying can add a single moment to your life? Let's change that question around. Who of you by worrying can take some single moments away from your life? Yes. How many of you have stayed awake at night when you should be sleeping, but you're not sleeping because you're doing what? You're worrying, right? And Jesus is well aware of the fact that worrying does not help you, right? It doesn't. We all know this, right? Worrying does not help you move forward. As a matter of fact, it detracts from that. So he says, Jesus goes on to say this, therefore I say to you, don't worry about your life, what you will eat, or about your body, what you will wear. There is more to life than food, and more to the body than clothing. Consider the ravens, who are probably going to lose today. Consider the ravens. They neither plant nor harvest. Actually, they're probably going to win, now that I think about it. Consider the ravens. They neither plant nor harvest. They have no silo or barn, yet God feeds them. And you are worth so much more than birds. Who among you by worrying can add a single moment to your life? Jesus is saying, don't worry about this. Release it. Let that go. Let that go. And then he says this. Sell your possessions and give to the poor. And it doesn't say sell most of your possessions or some of your possessions or one of your possessions. Jesus says sell your possessions and give to the poor. And he says, that point then, you have been released from worry. I had a guy I knew in where I used to live on Long Island who bought a brand new bright red Corvette. Beautiful car. Never drove it anywhere. I never saw him. It was always in his garage. I said, why don't you go anywhere in this car? He says, because I can't park it. If I park it, something might happen to it. So he's got a beautiful car that he can't drive anywhere, because if he takes it anywhere, all he'll do is worry about it. What should he do with that Corvette? He should sell it and give the money to his poor pastor. One of the things we do know is this. We do know that sometimes the acquisition of things makes us, in a sense, unhappier. We find that we can't hold on to all that we have. It makes it harder for us. But how much do we need? How much should we keep? How much is enough for ourselves? And when are we over that limit? How many of you right now probably think you are probably over the limit of what you actually need? It's very difficult to live in the United States and not be over that limit. Very hard, because we are told all day long that we need things. I'm on Facebook one day. Up comes an ad for a T-shirt that has the state of Maine, a map of the state of Maine, with the flag of Maryland imposed over it. Now, who in this church would buy a flag that has both Maryland and Maine on it? I mean, buy a T-shirt. How did they know this? You know, who made this? And did I buy it? Yes, I did. I had to give them credit for that one. I said, this time they really got it. We're told over and over again how many times a day that we need these things if we're going to be happy. Do we? Do we? Could we divest? Could we sell all of our possessions and give it to the poor and then be happy? Would you be happy then? Jesus says this. Make for yourself a treasure in heaven, for where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Seek God's realm, and all these things will be given to you as well. Every bit of wealth that you have, every single bit of it can be lost, right? Every bit of it could be lost some way or another. Think about these people in California that we've seen on the news recently who say, I have nothing left, because everything can be taken. There isn't a thing that you've got that you've invested in that can't be taken from you. Every bit of wealth is losable. You can lose it now, and if you don't lose it now, you're going to lose it at the end, because you can't take it with you. One of the secrets to investing is to find something to invest in that will continue to pay off returns after a long period of time. And what is it? What is it that you can invest in right now that will pay you off over a long period of time? Is it General Motors? Is it Apple? What is it that will pay you over a long period of time? There are things that are permanent. God's love, faith, your love for others. When you invest in those sort of things, the returns continue and continue on after your life. God's realm, Jesus says, to seek God's realm, and God's realm is simply life the way it should be, which here in Maine we should know all about. Life the way it should be, your life the way it should be, is what you want to invest in. This is our goal, to invest in the things that matter, the things that are going to take place, the things that carry on God's work of love and grace and peace and compassion. And this church is one of those places that does these things. I don't know how many times in the last 5 years or so people have come to me and said, I have seen a change in this church in the way we welcome people here. This is a place where anybody can come and feel like they belong here. And I think that's true. We've opened up our doors in so many ways. We've been talking about that for the past several weeks, that there are so many ways in which this church has opened its doors to its community, and we continue to seek other ways to do that so that people can come here and find something of God's love for them in this place. If you want to invest, you can invest in corporations, you can invest in the stock market. Who knows what will happen? You can invest in the work that we do here, and it will continue on and continue on. Amen.
You've been listening to a sermon by Reverend Stephen Carnahan, pastor of High Street Congregational Church in Auburn, Maine. If you feel inspired by what you hear, you're invited to join us in person for worship services every Sunday morning, starting at 10 o'clock. Of course, you can always listen to Steve's sermons on the web. New sermons are posted every Monday by midday. Please explore this website for more information about our church, or visit our Facebook page at High Street Congregational Church, UCC, where you'll find the video version of Steve's sermons as well. We hope that God's presence will be known to you every hour of every day. May God's blessings rest upon you now and always. See you next week.